All right. Taking a look here. Says we are live, but of course, we want to confirm that on Facebook ourselves. Boom. We are live. Good morning, good morning, good morning, folks. Hope everybody is doing well this morning. This is Morning Mentorship. Um, and I am Andre English, and I'm going to be your host today. And we're going to be talking again here on week 2 about the book The Psychology of Winning. Okay. We're talking about the psychology of winning. Hold on one second. We're going to get this turned off. Boom. So we are talking about the psychology of winning. This is our book of the month. Last week we just did a quick dive into it. We got through pretty much the introduction of the book. We reintroduced Morning Mentorship to everybody just to let them know what was going on. You know, this was something that we have done for years and years and years as part of Legacy Worldwide. And we are now bringing that back so that we could continue to grow ourselves on a monthly basis. Okay. And before I jump into today's topics within the psychology of winning, just want to let you guys know again, next month's book is going to be Dr. Miles Monroe, In Pursuit of Purpose. Okay. So we'll be starting that book in October. So that gives you plenty of time to be able to get the book, be able to join in with us. Again, you still have time to get this book because we still have today, as well as 2 more weeks in which we will be taking a deep dive into this book, The Psychology of Winning. And we're really excited, guys. Okay, there's a lot of things going on within our team, within our organization, within our lives, etc. And we're really fired up about where the trajectory of things is going. So for those of you who are watching us on Facebook, please comment, like, share. If you get some value here, but definitely drop a comment. Let us know if you're watching it on replay, if you're watching it live, etc. And for those of you who see this on YouTube as it gets posted, please feel free to comment as well. We definitely want to make this something that provides tremendous value for you. And as we continue with this series, we'll be bringing in other people, we'll be bringing in other books, and it's going to be phenomenal. So we're excited about that. All right. But let's go ahead and jump into this. Last week, like I said, we did not get far into the chapters. We really just gave you an introduction to the book itself, an introduction, and we were covering like the forward, the intro, that type of stuff. This week, I want to dive into the actual chapter. So we're going to attempt to get through chapter 1, 2, and 3 today in this book. And yeah, it is an interesting book to say the least. For those of you who listened last week, we did talk about the fact that this book was written many years ago. And so some things held up really well, and some of the references may be things that you're like, well, I'm not so sure. But what we have to understand is how to pull out the points that are valuable to us. And there's a lot of value in this book, okay? There is a lot of value that you can ascertain from this book, and it has either given me new insight or it has reminded me of things that I may have forgot about and had stopped applying in my own life. And so I'm truly grateful that this was the book that we started with. All right, I'm truly grateful for that. So, chapter 1 in The Psychology of Winning is all about positive self-awareness. Now, what I want you guys to understand in this book is that there's basically 10 traits to the psychology of winning. We're going to go through those 10 chapters. We're going to cover like the first 3 today. So the first one is positive self-awareness, okay? Positive self-awareness. So in this book, the author, Dennis Waitley, he describes positive self-awareness, or he defines positive self-awareness as winners are honest about their potential and honest about the time and effort necessary for top achievement. And so I wanted to start there because it reminded me of something, because a lot of times when we're in a space of self-development, self-improvement, we talk about the idea that you could accomplish anything, you could do anything that you set your mind to. And I do believe there is something to that, but I'm going to use sort of a sports analogy here as well. There's also something to the self-awareness to realize where your talents, where your abilities, where what you have been gifted lies, okay? And so, for example, I could, in my heart of hearts, want to be an NFL linebacker, but if I'm 5'1", you know, 135 pounds, despite the effort that I may put in, despite even maybe bulking up a little, right? Gaining some weight. If my 40 is a 5.5 or a 5 or a 6 on the 40 time, the likelihood is that no matter how much I want to believe that I'm going to be an NFL linebacker, no matter how much film study I do, the likelihood is that that's probably not something that can be a reality, right? And so what he's talking about here is having a level of self-awareness of of who you are and having self-honesty to say, do I have the talents and abilities to pursue what it is that I want to pursue? And if I don't, do I have the ability to gain skill? Do I have the ability to learn or even be capable of adding what's needed to be able to reach that particular goal? And so I think it's a very interesting starting point because it is a little bit of a dichotomy, if you will, from a lot of the ideas within the self-development and self-improvement industry, that idea that you can accomplish whatever it is that you set your mind to, etc. But having a level of self-awareness is important. And I believe that goes back to understanding this, which is our next month's book, which is having self-awareness about yourself, but if you have a purpose and you've clearly defined what that purpose is, what it is that you're supposed to do, why you're here, what are the things that you want to accomplish, what are the talents and gifts that God has given you, right? If you understand and begin to dissect that, then you'll have self-awareness. So maybe these things that you have a passion for, on the other side, maybe it's sports, golf, whatever it may be, might not be where your purpose lies. And so, therefore, having that level of self awareness lets you realize I might not be able to reach professional levels at this, but I can still enjoy it. But I have skills and other things over here that if I put my time, energy, and effort into, then I could maximize the potential of my life, right? So, realizing that each human is a person with equal rights to fulfill his, her, or her own potential. So, when he's talking about self awareness, he's also in this chapter talking about being aware that everybody on planet Earth has the right, every individual has the equal right to pursue their own potential. And, it's a beautiful concept, right? It's a beautiful concept. The idea that all of us, right, have potential that more than likely is being unfulfilled right now, and that we could go after it. We could choose to fulfill that potential, but more importantly, we have the right to do so. And sometimes, depending on different communities that you come from, the different environments that you come from, sometimes within yourself, you don't always feel like you're worthy. And that's what I took from the idea of the right? You don't always feel like you're worthy to be able to pursue. You don't feel like you're worthy to have certain levels of success. And even when you achieve those levels of success, sometimes that feeling of self-doubt of like, I'm not worthy of this actually creeps in, right? And so not only do you have the right to do it, but it's worth pursuing. It's interesting because one of my great mentors, Errol Webley, one of the things that he said that blew my mind one time is that, and I've never forgotten it, and it stuck with me. And you may have heard me say this on many occasions. And he asked, "What was the wealthiest place on earth?" And of course, I was, Dubai and Fort Knox and I'm saying, all these different types of places. And he said the wealthiest place on earth was actually the cemetery because it's there that all the potential has been buried. All the things that God placed inside of someone that they didn't accomplish, that they never chased, that they never pursued, that they let the opinion of others right? Be able to dictate what it was that they did with their life. They let mediocrity, they let the idea of just being comfortable instead of being, great. They allowed a comfortable life to stop them from having an incredible life, right? And all these different inventions and ideas, they were all buried in the cemetery. The wealth of the world was buried there because it's unrealized potential. And so this idea of potential and chasing your potential is something that's always stuck with me. He goes on in this chapter, he kind of goes on, and I love this too. And he's talking about um, when you're thinking about yourself, having self-awareness. Again, this is the idea of this chapter. The ability to be aware of who you are and how you can be perceived, right? And what he talks about here is he, and I underline this line in particular, being that I'm a man. He said, "How would um how would you like, right? If you were a wife, how would you like you as a husband, basically, right? If you were, a best friend, would you want you as a best friend, right? And as we relate it to business, and a lot of you guys know we're in the direct sales industry, the home-based business industry, and a lot of times that involves us being able to introduce the concept, introduce the business idea to other people and bring them on and grow a team and a family of individuals that you grow a business with. And the idea was, would you want to sponsor you? Would you want to sponsor you? Right? If you were going to go out there and picture yourself building a business and a team of individuals to grow something to a historic level or grow something to a significant level, could you or would you want to replicate you? Would you want to go out and sponsor 10 of you into your business? And a lot of times that's a question that we don't normally ask. We just go out and we want to grab people here and we want to get this guy and this guy. We think he'll be great for the business and he'll do this. And the idea behind this concept is having enough self-awareness to develop yourself to become the guy, right? To become the model, to become the blueprint of what it is that you would want to replicate. I'll give you an example. This morning mentorship call started with a couple by the name of Randy and Wanda Webb years ago. And because he became the guy, right? And he did these calls, and what happened is it replicated into other people. Hence why now he's not doing the calls anymore. He's moved on to an incredible career in law enforcement, right? Uh, but the calls can still continue on because he became the blueprint. He became something that was duplicatable, and then he passed that duplication on to other people and grew other leaders and grew other people and had enough security and self-awareness to understand that it was okay. He didn't have to be the only one, right? And so that's one of the things that's beautiful. And when you think about your business, whether it is in the direct sales industry or not, maybe you have a traditional brick and mortar store. Are you thinking to yourself, would, what example are you setting for your employees? What example are you setting for your staff? You know, would you want you as a manager, right? And so this level of self-awareness is important because we all have blind spots. And even with the self-awareness, those blind spots still exist. And that's why it's very important to have people that you trust and people that care about you to be able to point out your blind spots, because the blind spots are blind spots for a reason. You don't see them, you don't know them, right? Okay. But it is important to be able to have people that you can trust to talk to you, and a level of self-awareness to be able to say, hey, that's not who you are. And right, like it is important to be able to have that. All right. Would you want to duplicate you? Would you want to work for you? Right? Would you want to be in a relationship with you? And understanding that is really, really important. He says on page 26, if we want to conquer undesirable emotional tendencies in ourselves, we must learn to go through the outward movements of the desirable positive dispositions that we prefer to cultivate. In other words, have you ever heard some of the ideas of what is it, like fake it till you make it type of thing? And I don't really like that idea. What I like is the idea of modeling a behavior, going out and being able to look at an example of something, someone that you respect and admire, and that behavior that they do, to begin to model that behavior into your life, right? So maybe you don't have the results of that behavior yet. So that's where the fake it till you make it comes in. But the idea is, and rather than deal with some of these negative expressions or the negative emotional tendencies, I want to be able to control my emotions. I want to be able to have a positive self-image, right? And so I'm going to model the behaviors that I want. I'm going to model those things. I'm going to find an example, and I'm going to do the things that they do. And eventually, if you do the things that they do, you'll get the results that they're getting, potentially, right? That's the idea, right? Is that you can begin to develop the habit. You can begin to change what it is that you don't like about yourself, whether it's as he says, emotional tendencies, right? And then we have to learn to go through the outward movement. So we have to actually go out and apply. We have to do the things that are positive to replace those emotional tendencies. We have to go out and outwardly act the way that we want to, and we have to repeatedly do this over and over until it becomes a habit, until it becomes a part of who we are, right? And so that's one of the important reasons why you want to find good mentorship. You want to find people that you can replicate. You want to find people who are doing the activities necessary to produce the results of who you want to become. And you want to replicate, you want to model those activities, right? This is one of my favorite parts of this chapter, right? Um, he goes on to talk about, within the concept of self-awareness, he's really focusing on this idea, right? When we're talking about modeling, or we're talking about the outward movements of the desirable positive dispositions that we prefer to cultivate, the word cultivate, develop, that we want to develop within ourselves. And he talks about this constant idea, and this is going to be a theme through probably the rest of this, even in some of the other chapters, right? Is this idea of self-development, right? This idea that it's incumbent upon you to grow yourself, that you have to constantly improve. And he says here that positive self-awareness is realizing that a person who does not read is no better than the person who cannot read, and that the person who does not continue to grow, learn, and adapt is no better than one who can't grow. Have you ever heard someone say indecision is a decision? Again, we'll probably refer a lot on this call to someone like Randy Webb. Randy Webb talks about it all the time, right? Deciding not, you think you're making a decision that I'm not going to go to the gym today. I'm not going to eat healthy today, but I'll start tomorrow, right? And what happens is your decision not to go is a decision not to get better. And we don't stay the same. That's just not how we go. Either we're growing or we're declining, right? And so every day that we don't make a conscious decision to grow, we're automatically making a conscious decision not to grow. We're automatically making a conscious decision to decline, right? It's the same idea we talked about last week when we talked about the idea that it says, "Oh, beloved, how I wish you were either hot or cold, but since you're neither, I spew you from my mouth." The idea of not deciding, the idea of thinking that you're just going to stay the same, even within consolidation, for those of us who are in the business, right? For those of us who are onto the charts, who are into trading, who are into financial literacy, even the idea of consolidation, you still have a movement within a range. The movement was in the range. You're growing. So if this is the consolidation zone, you start here and you move up and back down and back up and back down and back up and back down, and you may be stuck in that zone, but there's still constant movement, right? There's an attempt to either break out in the improvement, or there's an attempt to go down, but we don't stay the same, right? And so what happens is you have to understand that a decision has to be made, and no decision is a decision in the negative against you, right? And that's one of the things that that I hope people will understand is that we need to decide, right? We need to uh, continue to grow. We need to continue to apply that to our lives, right? Because it's one of the things that's going to allow us to have the so-called psychology or the thought process of winning, constantly getting better. In my life, I had the opportunity in high school, and I don't like to pull the Al Bundy stories out on you guys, right? But in high school, we won two CIF championships in the state of California, right? So those are basically, if you're not familiar with that, that's like a city championship. And then we won the state championship one year also, right? And so we won the league championship all 4 years. And so the idea is, I remember on those teams, one of the reasons why we were successful is the coach who we had, Coach Miller, um, constantly stressed that we got a little bit better each day. We got a little bit better each day. We got a little bit better each day. So we were constantly in growth mode, right? We were constantly developing and improving ourselves. And we would go back to the fundamentals. We would start every practice with jump stops and pivots, and we would work through those fundamentals and we would improve on that stuff. And obviously, that led to us continuing to grow throughout the year. But he would also stress other things, grow as a team, psychologically grow, get mentally tougher, like the whole process. It wasn't just one thing, but it was the constant attention to growth. And so sports is a great metaphor, a great analogy, right? Because we can apply that to other areas of our life. We can extrapolate that experience from high school and we can apply it to other areas of our life. If I want to get better, if I want to grow, I have to constantly be adding new things, new skills, new whatever into my toolbox, right? It's understanding how much potential and abundance we have and how little we have done to challenge our minds, right? This is self-awareness, understanding how much potential you have and realizing how little you have used that potential, how little you have chosen to develop and cultivate and challenge your mind and challenge your beliefs and challenge your ability to grow what potential you have. And even if you are growing it, how much more potential exists and how much more could be done, right? Pretty powerful. At least, like, that's the purpose of this mentorship. That's the purpose of mentorship anyway, is to continue to put us in a position where we're going to grow. We're starting small, one book a month, where we take the time out and we develop and we look at it and we break it down and we attempt to apply the principles that come out of the book, and then we attempt to curate them and cultivate them and add them into our own lives so that we can execute on those principles and we become a better version of ourselves. That's what the mentorship is for. For those of you who are part of my business, Envision You, right? That's the purpose of the academy. We have a whole academy that's teaching you financial education skills, right? That's teaching you about cryptocurrency, that's teaching you about trading, that's teaching you about Airbnb, that's teaching you about Turo, that's teaching you about financial literacy overall, the skills that you need to own a business. It's constantly growing and developing you. And the beauty of it is those educators are there. And so as things change and concepts change, they're still on top of it, giving you new education so that you can constantly stay on top. You can constantly grow, right? There's mentorship calls on through that business as well, right? Where you can get training and development and thought process from seven-figure earners, right? Constantly putting yourself in that space. You know, one of the most valuable lessons right now, I work for a company that's a distributor of Verizon. And one of the most valuable lessons that I learned in coming to this company a couple of years ago as I was going through a divorce, right, is that you want to age well with technology. It's amazing how many people will come in to the store and say, I don't know how to do any of this stuff. This is beyond me, right? Or I don't want to mess with this new technology stuff. I just miss my old flip phone. Now you would think that these people are like 90 years old. Some of them are 50, 55, right? You know what I'm saying? I miss my old house phone. I still, boy, I wish I could go back to Bugs Bunny, right? You know, on the cartoons. Why, you know, like there's no growth. They're stuck, you know. It's one of the reasons why there's a biblical analogy of Lot and his wife, and they're leaving, and they're instructed not to look back. And Lot's wife, of course, turns and looks back, and she turns into a pillar of salt. That idea of being stuck, right? When you constantly look backwards, right? When you don't want to grow, when you don't want to develop. Now, there is a purpose to be able to look back. You can look back and celebrate the successes for your positive self-esteem. You can say, hey, I want to look back. I want to recognize that I have won before, right? But when you're looking back at the past and longing for the past, right? What you realize is that you can get stuck. You can get stuck whether it's a relationship, you can get stuck whether it's business, you can get stuck in all different types of areas, right? And you don't want to get stuck. You want to continue to grow. And so I kind of learned that a lot by watching how people react to this development of technology. You know, you'll hear, probably those of you who are into cryptocurrency, hear people talk about all the time, oh no, I don't want to do, I don't do, not realizing that they're not going to have a choice. And so why not learn it now when it's at its infancy, when you can take advantage of it, when it could be a benefit to you? Instead, they just want to stay where they are. They just want to stay where they are. They're scared to move, right? They're complacent with where they are. And so therefore, you know, there's one thing for being grateful and happy and thankful for where you are in life. And there's another thing, being stuck. And we don't want to be stuck. All right. The end of the chapter, he talks about love yourself, then give away all the love you feel. Now, the great thing about this chapter here and all the chapters is at the end of the chapter, he gives you some action steps for each chapter. He gives you a quick little review, and he gives you some action steps that you can take to develop that particular skill set. So for the take action today for more positive self-awareness, he talks about schedule a comprehensive annual physical with your own physician or a reputable clinic. Says don't wait for the flat tire, engine knock, or dead battery. Get a prevention checkup and tune-up. In other words, your health is important. This reminded me of Randy Webb. I actually have Randy's name written right by that, right? Your health is important, okay? Your positive self-awareness is understanding that this is the only vehicle that you got. This is the only body that you got. This is the only life that you got. You got to protect this temple. You got to take care of it, right? Number two, be more curious about everything in your world. And this reminded me of a guy by the name of Myron Golden. If you've never seen Myron Golden, he teaches success principles, business principles, but he teaches it through a biblical perspective. But one of the things that he says is his great gift that he's been given is his insatiable curiosity, right? His curiosity to learn and know and ask questions. And so be curious about everything in your world will help you with your self-awareness. Break the daily habit, number three, and weekly routine you have set for yourself, right? There's a great book that we have covered on this mentorship call in the past called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, right? Break the daily habits, set new habits and new routines. Number four, make a list of I ams, right? I am good at and I need improvement in, right? These different areas. Number five, look at yourself through other people's eyes, right? Imagine being your parents. Imagine being what that person is married to you. Imagine being your child, whatever. Look at yourself through other people's eyes, right? Number six, look at yourself through your own eyes objectively. Number seven, take 30 minutes each day for you alone, right? To relax, to breathe, to exhale, to develop yourself. Number eight, look for truth and speak the truth. Number nine, be aware of children and elderly. And number 10, be empathetic. Learn to feel how others feel and consider where they are coming from before criticizing or passing judgment. So that's the steps that you could do. Love yourself, then give away all the love you feel today. I love that. I love that. All right. So as we move here, we're going to go into chapter 2 of positive self-esteem. Okay. Or chapter 2 of the psychology of winning. And chapter 2 is developing positive self-esteem. Right. And the very first thing he says in this chapter is, in order to develop positive self-esteem, you must develop and have positive self-talk. It says positive self-talk is the key to developing positive self-esteem. Positive self-talk. There's a great book by Shad Helmstetter, what to say when you talk to yourself. Positive self-talk. We talk to ourselves more and we hear our own voice more than we hear anybody else's throughout the day. What are the things that we're saying to ourselves? Do we say to ourselves, you're stupid, you're dumb? Of course you can't do that. Like these are the things that often our minds will lead towards negative because we've put a lot of negative in. If we look at a cup filled with water and we look at that as our mind, a lot of times there's more negative that's in there than there is positive. There's more negative thoughts. There's, oh, you don't look good in those clothes. You can't dance. You're not tall enough. You're not fit enough. You're not all these different types of things. You're not smart enough. Of course, all that's in there. And then there's a little positive. And so what we have to begin to do, right, is begin to dilute that negative with positive to the point where we can overflow ourselves with positive self-talk so that we can continue to develop our self-esteem, right? We can develop our self-esteem. And one of the things that we could do besides not only listening to things and getting around mentorship, but one of the things, and most important thing you can do is begin to talk positive about yourself. It says the most important quality of a good leader is the positive encouragement of their people toward the development of self-worth. Towards the development of self-worth. You are worthy. You are worthy. And sometimes we don't feel that way, but you are worthy of what it is that you want. You are worthy of your purpose. You are worthy of your gifts, right? You are worthy of your goals and your dreams and your aspirations. You are worthy of them. And I think that's important because when we feel worthy, right? When we develop a self-worth, action usually follows behind. Action usually follows behind. When we don't feel worthy of something, we just don't go after it because we're like, oh, it's beyond us. But when we feel worthy, when we have a high enough self-esteem and a self-image of ourselves to say, yeah, I can accomplish that. I deserve that, right? I'm willing to put in the work to do that. Then all of a sudden, action follows behind it. And we have to have action in order to get to where it is that we want to go. The idea is, it says biblically, faith without works is dead. Because if you just had faith alone and didn't put any work behind it, it's not faith, it's a wish. Faith is an action word. Faith says that I believe that this will happen. So therefore, even though I have not seen it, it's not a reality. I can't physically touch it yet. I'm going to go out and put the work to make it happen because I believe that it's a possibility, right? Faith is, it hasn't rained in forever. And all of a sudden, I've been given the word from God that I should build an ark, right? When it hasn't rained, and I go out there and I build an ark. I have faith in the word. I have faith in what I'm doing. Everybody's like, bro, what are you doing? Why are you building a boat? There's no rain. There's no this. You're crazy. You're gathering up animals or whatever. Boom, I have faith. It's an action word, right? It's an action word. And so self-worth, right? Self-esteem allows you to develop that, right? Allows you to say that I have faith that I can accomplish something, right? Winners learn to understand that self-development is a lifelong program, okay? You're going to have to constantly develop yourself. It's why in the home-based business industry, in the MLM industry, in that industry, there's always another conference. There's always another event. And sometimes people are like, how come I have to go to all those events? I'm self-motivated and this and that. But those events and those conferences are places where you to get together with other like-minded people. It's a place where you to recharge. It's a place where you to learn and develop new skills, to understand the new technology that's coming out, sometimes the new product within your business. It's a place for you to grow yourself. And you don't have to just go to conferences there. You can jump on morning mentorship calls. You can grab more books than just the one book a month. You can go and listen to other seminars. You can sign up for other programs. But it is a lifelong process. We're always learning. We're always cultivating. We're always getting better. We are grateful for where we are. We are grateful for what we have. We are grateful for what we've been gifted. But at the same time, we realize that there's more that we can do, that we can achieve, that we can become, right? And we're in constant pursuit of doing that. It's a lifelong process to develop new skills, right? Develop self-esteem, to develop self-esteem, again, positive self-talk. The power of words, the power of words. You know, again, biblically, we're talking about Luke 8:11. The word is the seed. The word is the seed. God spoke everything into existence. The word has power. Your words have power. That's why I used to say the power of the pen, right? Is mightier than a sword, right? Because at that time it was words, the words that you speak, the words that you read, the words that you put in yourself, they can cut you, they can build you, right? Your words are important. Proverbs 18:21, it says, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. In other words, what you sow, you shall reap. So if you continue to speak negative things about yourself, if you continue to speak negatively and gossip about other people, you will reap a harvest of it. And the harvest always comes back multitudes more than what it is that you sowed. So if you want to have a life of favor, a life of blessings, you got to speak blessing. You got to speak positive. You want to have a positive filled life, you got to speak positive things. But more importantly, to develop your self-esteem, you have to begin to speak positively about yourself. You have to speak with a level of belief. If you believe that everything is going to work out for your good, if you believe that you've been divinely put here with a purpose, if you believe these types of things, then you have to go out, you need to speak it constantly, and you need to speak it with a level of belief, because when you put the words with the feeling, the belief behind the feeling, right, then it's magic. It activates, right? It activates. And so that's what you want to be able to do. You want to build yourself up the ladder of belief. You know, a lot of times when you look at these like companies and stuff like that, you can tell who believes. You can tell who believes because the activity follows the believer, right? When you are sitting there and you're saying to yourself, man, this is an amazing opportunity. This space that I'm in, whether it's an environment to learning, I happen to be a co-owner of a company called Cash to Crypto Society, right? And we have a great community there. But you can tell who believes, right? Some people just show up and they're I'm gonna give this thing a try. And there's other people who believe in what it is that we're doing. They believe in what it is that they're learning, right? With Envision U, the company that I'm a part of, you can tell who believes. Those are the people who are ranking up. They're not ranking up just by luck, most of them, right? They're ranking up because they're going out and they're talking, and because they're not going out and talking just for some kind of compensation. They're going out and talking because they believe in what it is that they're sharing. They believe in the mission that they're doing. They're going out and helping spread financial literacy, or they're going out and they're deciding to help people have access to travel. They believe in what they have their hands on. And when you have belief, there's action, right? When you have belief, there's action. So you have to know that you are capable. You have to speak it. You have to believe it. You know, the company Envision U is started by a guy by the name of David Emanitier, and he has a book like The Power of Belief, or Believe and Achieve, or Believe Nation, right? The idea of belief. Belief is important. Without it, you won't take action, right? Without it, you won't take action. And action is what we need, right? Action is what we need you to be able to do to develop the confidence, to develop the self-improvement, right? On the bottom of page 39, right, we talk about developing self-esteem here. He said the word esteem literally means to appreciate the value of. Self-esteem, esteem, to appreciate the value of yourself, to appreciate the value of the gifts that you bring, right? Why do we stand in awe of the power and immensity of the sea, the uniqueness of a solar eclipse, the beauty of a flower, a giant redwood, or a sunset, and at the same time downgrade ourselves? Didn't the same creator make us? Are we not the most marvelous creation of all, able to think, experience, change our environment, and love? Don't downgrade the product just because you haven't used it properly and effectively. Mic drop. Mic drop. Don't downgrade yourself just because up to this point you may not have maximized its use. You may not have used yourself as effectively. You ever seen someone who's like 50 years old, completely out of shape and never worked out in their life, and then you come back and you see them at 60 and they look like they're 30 years old, ripped and cut, look incredible, right? What if they would have just said, it's not possible for me at 50. I can never be in shape, right? Just because in the past you haven't used something effectively doesn't change the effectiveness of that thing. It just means you haven't used it effectively, right? You can say the same thing about yourself in different areas of your life. Just because you're not good at something right now just means that you haven't taken the time to cultivate it, to practice it, to use it effectively, right? That's what's really important about that. I love that. Don't downgrade the product just because you haven't used it properly and effectively. There's so many people who came into the trading space who now won't come back into the trading space because they lost some money and they did some different things because they didn't use the product effectively. They signed up, they took a class or two, they said, I understand support and resistance. They went at it. They never continued to grow themselves. They never continued to invest in themselves. They never became vested in their own dreams. You know, at a job, when you become vested, that's what everybody's idea is. They want to be vested so that they get some kind of continual, some kind of residual, some kind of continued compensation for the time that they've put in. That's what vested is. You become vested in something. Most people are never vested in themselves. They've never invested and they never become vested, right? They never actually put the time in. And so just because you didn't use it effectively in the past does not mean that you should downgrade it. It does not mean that you can't become effective at it now, right? We're at a different place in our life. You ever picked up a book and read it read it again, and it's a whole different book? You could come back to a space that maybe you love the community and you love the environment and you loved everything about it, but maybe you didn't have a lot of success, but you can come back into that space now. And because you are at a different place in life, because you have had different experiences, because now you may be more emotionally ready, you may be more developed, all of a sudden, bang, you can pop off. You ever heard people go into network marketing? I've been with 8 companies and I never made more than $1,000. And on company number 9, they come in and boom, all of a sudden they're at 10, 15, $20,000 a month. Not an overnight success, but all those little developments, all those little skills, all those little things that they had to work out in themselves. And this time when they came, they were ready to take action. They had belief in the product. They had belief in the mentorship. They had belief in the company. They had belief in different things. And their own personal belief and self-esteem had already risen. And so, bam, they began to take off, right? So I love that, right? The idea, just don't downgrade the product just because you haven't used it properly and effectively. And there was power in that because I've related it to a product that you have physically. But when you start to understand that that is you, you are the product. You are the product. Don't mentally downgrade yourself because you haven't used you effectively as of yet. You haven't maximized your potential. You haven't learned to turn off the distractions just yet because you can learn to do it. You can learn that as a grown man, if your family is struggling, video games are fun, but video games need to be turned off. You can learn it, right? You can learn different things. You can learn how to be a better father. You can learn how to be a better husband. You can learn how to be a better brother. You can learn how to be a better leader. You can learn those things. And just because at this point you haven't used it effectively, don't downgrade the product. Don't downgrade you. Continue to speak positively into yourself. Have the self-awareness that we talked about to recognize that right now, the potential that you have, you're not living up to it. But that doesn't mean that you can't live up to it because you can begin to change things. You can change things today. 12 months from now, if you make a decision, if you decide today to be a better person, to be a better leader, to be a better businessman, to be a better husband, to be more fit, to go on vacations, whatever it is that you decide to learn a new skill set, if you decide today, 12 months from now, if you commit to that decision and you put some work behind it and you begin to develop new skill sets and you seek out mentorship and you do the things that are necessary, you actively practice and you actually model what it is that you want to do and you put it into place every single day, 12 months from now, you could be an entirely different person, an entirely different place, excuse me. I'm excited about that because I got some places that I want to go. I got some things that I want to do, right? And so that's one of the things that I'm excited about. Okay. He says confidence is built upon the experience of success. Success breeds success. Think about that. That's so true. You ever had something that you thought you couldn't do, and then the first time you did it, even if it wasn't perfect, all of a sudden you got a little more confidence? This is really true in our business. I'm relating this back to the home-based business a lot today, right? To MLM, right? Because the first time that you decide to actually get up in front of people and do a presentation, you're so nervous. You're so scared a lot of times. Like, oh my God, I'm gonna present in front of someone. I can't believe I'm gonna do this. And then you do it and you get one bit of feedback, and all of a sudden you're just like, that wasn't so bad. And then you develop a little more confidence, and you're like, I did it last week, I can do it this week. I did it yesterday, I can do it today. And all of a sudden you develop a skill, you develop the mental toughness, the resilience, because you're putting it into practice and you're doing it every day, and you get a little better, and now you're getting results. And so now all of a sudden, right? Because you've built on one success after another, now you're a successful presenter. The first time you had to sell a product and talk to someone about a product, you weren't very good at it, more than likely, right? Maybe it was just the enthusiasm or your excitement that someone bought after you, but it wasn't necessarily the explanation. It wasn't necessarily your skill set at the time. There's a little nugget in that, by the way. There's a little nugget in that, right? About being excited about what it is that you're doing and where it is that you're going in life, because so few people actually have a destination that they're headed. They've just accepted that life is going to take them where they are. And that's why when you decide and you make a decision on where you're going, a lot of times people will follow you, right? This is where I'm headed. This is where I'm going. This is what I'm going to do. This is what the next couple of years is going to look like. And the problem that most people have is they won't say it. They won't articulate it. They won't speak it because of fear of, if it didn't come true, what will people think? What will people say about me? Right? Man, what will people think has killed more dreams than anything I think out there, right? That is a virus that we don't want in our lives, right? Go after it, pursue it, build confidence after confidence, pre-play your victories, replay your victories, and pre-play your successes, right? I'm telling you, winners focus on past successes and forget past failures. That first time you picked up the phone to make a call on a prospect and you were going to invite them to see an overview, right? And the phone felt like 1,000 pounds. Like, you ever seen Randy lifting weights and one of them big old barbells? That's what the phone felt like, right? Is you, yeah, right. And all of a sudden you picked it up and you made that first call and it wasn't as bad. The second call, and you had a mentor with you. Let's make another call. Let's make another call. Let's talk about that call that you did. This is how we can do it better. And all of a sudden, boom, 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 boom. Now making calls is easy. You build off one success. Yeah, I'd love to come see what it is that you're talking about. Man, you hang up the phone and you're like, yes. You're so excited and you build off that success. When you're in the industry and sales, the first time you make a sale, it's easier to make a sale immediately after you made a sale because there's no doubt anymore that you can make a sale. Doubt isn't present and the customer can feel it. You're confident about what it is that you want to do. It goes back to that idea of belief. That's why in this industry, you can tell who believes because they've been building themselves up, little success after little success after little success after little success, to the point that they believe in what it is that they're doing. They believe in what it is that they have their hands on, right? Winners will focus on appearance, how you dress, looking sharp, feeling good about yourself, right? I'll give you an example. I used to never wear a suit and tie when I was growing up. I was an activist. I never wore a suit and tie. All of a sudden, I get in this business and I put on my first suit and tie. I'm in my 20s, mid 20s, right? Right. When I tell you just the psychological feeling that came over me by putting on that suit and tie was absolutely amazing. I remember working with one kid and I told him, we're doing a house meeting at your house. I want you to put a suit and tie on and watch the reaction. And he put a suit and tie and he felt good about himself, but he's like, this is silly. I'm in my own house. And all of a sudden, his friends knocked on the door and his buddies who are used to going out and smashing beer cans on their heads together and all that other stuff, right? The moment the door opened, they saw him in a suit and tie, and I was standing there, and their first reaction was, oh my God, this is a serious business that you brought me over here to talk about. The way people perceived them, the way people, right, was totally different. And the confidence that he had in himself, the way he dressed. I know that when you're with someone, oftentimes your partner will say that you're a reflection of me, right? So when you go out there and you're dressed a certain way, it's like you're a reflection of that person. So dress is important. Shaving and so forth, right, is important. Personal grooming is important, right? On page 41, it says, perhaps the most important key to the permanent enhancement of self-esteem is the practice of positive self-talk, what we've been talking about. Every moment we must feed our subconscious self-images, positive thoughts about ourselves and our performances so relentlessly and vividly that our self-images are in time modified to conform to the new higher standards. Again, it's not fake it till you make it, but it is telling yourself that you're going to succeed. It's celebrating those victories. Fake it till you make it is if you're unwilling to do the work necessary and you're just going out there saying, you're wishing, this is what I'm going to become. But when you do the work necessary, right? You tell yourself, this is what I'm going to become. I'm going to tell, I'm headed here. This is where I'm going. This is my vision for my life. When you're in this industry, fake it till you make it. It's you getting in front of the room. It's not fake it till you make it. It's I'm going to show the plan 10 times this week. I'm going to do these things. I'm going here. This is where I'm going. If you want to come. It's going to be great. Let's do it together. I'll help you. I'll reach down. I'll do those things. But I'm going diamond. I'm not a diamond yet, but I'm going diamond, and you become a diamond long before you hit the rank of diamond because you begin to model the activities of a diamond. You begin to speak the behaviors of a diamond, right? And that goes to whatever it is that you're doing. I don't care if you're in an apprenticeship right now to become a plumber. If you're with a master plumber and you begin to model the positive behaviors, because sometimes people have behaviors outside of the profession that you don't necessarily want to model, but within the profession, if you model those behaviors, you're going to become a master plumber. It is what it is, right? And so as we round out this chapter, right, it says winners are aware of their potential. They like who they are. Since they have a deep feeling of their own worth, they are eager to love others as they do themselves. Positive self-esteem, one of the most important qualities of a winner. Talk yourself up. There is no time to lose. Build yourself up. Build yourself up the ladder of belief. I remember Errol Webley used to say this all the time, that there's belief in the company and there's belief in the products and there's belief in the leadership and there's belief in your mentorship and so forth until you get belief in yourself. He used to say, I'll believe in you if you believe in me until you believe in yourself. How powerful is that? The way I see you is as a champion. I see you as the best of yourself. I'm going to speak the best of you into you. And if you'll just believe what I'm saying is true long enough, eventually you'll believe it for yourself. But I'm going to believe in you if you'll believe in what I'm telling you until you believe in yourself. That's powerful stuff, man. That is powerful stuff. Go on here. There's always the 10 action steps at the end of this chapter. Dress and look your best at all times, regardless. Volunteer your name first in every telephone call, or decide that, hey, I'm a volunteer. I'm going to be the first one to go. Take inventory of your good reasons for self-esteem. And he says, write down what your bag is. And again, this is beautiful because the bag, getting to the bag is something that's said now. It says blessings, who and what you are thankful for, accomplishments, what you have done and what you're proud of so far, and goals, what your dreams and ambitions are. That's the bag, right? Respond with a thank you when someone compliments you. Again, how many people will downgrade themselves when someone gives a compliment? Oh, no, I'm not really that good, but no, thank you. I appreciate that. I am headed in that direction. Thank you, right? Sit up front in most prominent rows when you attend meetings, lectures, and conferences. Okay? In some businesses, you have to actually qualify to sit up front. But anytime you have the opportunity to sit in the front row, and there's no qualification, get in the front row. I actually had a college coach that he used to come around and check if we were sitting in the front row or not. And if we weren't sitting in the front row, he used to run us until we threw up at practice, right? But what happened by sitting in the front row is we were forced to pay attention. We couldn't go to sleep on the professor. The professor asked questions and would look right at us. And so we would answer the questions. So we were learning more. Our retention was higher. We developed a relationship with the educator because we were in the front row. So powerful, right? Walk more erectly and authoritatively in public. Set your own internal standards rather than comparing yourselves to others. Why? What does your life look like? What we talked about last week. What does your life look like? Set your own internal standards for what it is that you want to have and go after and chase it. Use encouraging affirmative language and keep a self-development plan ongoing at all times. Seek out the real winners in life as friends and role models. Misery loves company, but so does success. That's a beautiful line right there. That's a bar, right? And smile. In every language, in every culture, smiles work, right? Losers live in a classic style in the neverland called Someday I'll. Winners live each day as if they're last, not in the future, nor in the past, and someday becomes now. Okay? So positive self-control is chapter 3. We're running out of time here. What I want you to do is read this chapter on your own. It is about positive self-control. It says winners don't leave their development and potential to chance. They pursue it systematically. Self-control. But self-control specifically in this chapter talks about accepting responsibility for where you are in your life. There's self-control to understand that you are responsible for where you are in life. There's not outside influences. It's the decisions that you make that are responsible for where you are. So if you woke up today and you're not happy with where you are, take inventory of some of the things that you've done and look at where you can change behaviors, where you can model behaviors, where you can begin to change some things so that you can be someplace different 6 months, a year from now. You can change the input so that you can change the output, because you can't necessarily change the output unless you change the input. So begin to do that. And that's what that chapter is talking about. We're going to wrap this thing up and get ready. Next week, we will be on chapter 4 of The Psychology of Winning. Thank you again. This has been Morning Mentorship. Really excited about doing this with you guys. And we look forward to next week and all the growth that's going to come. I hope some of you guys did your homework from last week. If you did, that's awesome. But again, we look forward to hearing from you guys. Any great folks. Talk to y'all later.